Hi, and welcome to It's 501 Somewhere. I'm your host, Chris Blackman, and I'm joined today by the glorious Janet Schijns, CEO of JS Group. Hey, Janet, thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Chris, and I'm glad to join you in a drink. Of course, my choice is chocolate, but we all have our little things,
We
right?
all have our vices. Well, that's okay. I'll drink enough wine during this interview for both of us.
Nice.
I'm giving that way.
You're a giver. You're truly a giver.
So what's going on in your world these days, Janet? What are you seeing?
Well, first of all, we're busy. The channel's busy, but it's definitely the tale of two cities, right? So we're hearing from a lot of partners, particularly smaller MSPs, that their local small businesses are closed, that things are changing. People are thinking about closing businesses down or working fully remote, which presents its own opportunity for the MSPs. And then we're hearing from others, particularly those that are heavily ingrained in cloud and cloud workloads and security, and particularly, of course, all of our favorites, video and UCC. They're very busy because, of course, as we enable the world to work remote, they needed some different tools. So we're seeing basically the haves and have-nots out in the channel right now.
That's a really good way of putting it. You know, we rolled out this survey, the impact of COVID on the business models of partners and kind of what they're seeing right now, how they're having to shift, how they're having to adjust on the fly. Now, when people are stuck working at home and you're not sure how much money you're going to be bringing in through the rest of 2020, what's your value proposition?
Right. And I think, it starts with understanding, first of all, the tonality. So, all business relationships are based on mutual selfishness. So if you're an MSP, let's use this as the example, they believe they're getting more from the customer and the customer believes they're getting more from them. So mutual selfishness is the base of all business relationships. And that selfishness has changed because what was I'm going to grow both on the MSP side and the client side. Think about it, a decade plus of a good economy, multiple quarters of, 3% unemployment, whatever statistics you believe, right? But it was just the tonality of it was different. It was about, I'm going to get mine and you're going to get yours and we're both going to grow. Mm-hmm. Now it's, how do I protect myself? How do I defend myself? How do I keep myself safe? So the language just of the value props, everybody who wrote that fantastic value prop that was all about how they were going to help your company grow or be the digital go-to, destination or whatever that positive thing was, is completely the wrong message now because people need you to lead with the negative. You're going to defend, you're going to protect, you're going to preserve, you're going to conserve, you're going to help, it's all negative language that is motivating now. So the value prop of we're your go-to destination for IT services, right? And I'm using a bad value prop, but it's an easy example, needs to change to, we can save your company, insert, whatever your emotion is. So, and I really think that's where partners need to work on that value proposition to understand that they have to now lead with a quasi-negative in their value prop of how they are saving their customers versus, in the past when it was growing or helping or supporting. It's just a very different bend.
Do you know what that reminds me of? For the last, 2 or 3 years, we've been having a lot of conversations with MSSPs, and their whole challenge is, I don't want to sell on fear. It's really hard to sell, some sort of service saying, I'm going to, protect you from attacks without seeming like you're trying to take advantage of, potential pitfalls or negative situations or a client's fear. So that's interesting the way you put that. I didn't think about that before. Now we're kind of seeing that conversation span the entirety of the channel. So how do you balance that?
So the first part is, just because you lead with a negative thought doesn't mean you're selling fear. So if you're selling me, you're going to be hacked. And if you don't work with me, you're going to get hacked and lose your company. That's selling fear. And that's an overreach in any market. But, a year ago, it was, as your company grows, right, your needs change. And it's the need for security, the need for advanced solutions. Now it's as your company struggles with this new environment, there's a need for, right? So it's still the same things. It's just the wrapper around it has to be one of, hopefulness in helping someone through a difficult situation,
Mhm.
not fear mongering, but also not positive mongering, right? So it's that line in between. So that's the first half of the message. And the second half of the message is to have a conversation with them that they're having in their brain, but they're not having out loud. So I'm going to use UCC since, we've got a lot of folks that do that. So the permission, and you even saw Twitter said they're going to permit people to work from home through the end of the year.
Mhm.
Permitting people to work from home and enabling people to work from home are two very different things. So if you permit someone to work from home, it means that at some point they're going to go back to the office. If you enable them to work from home, you have to get them the right technology, the right surrounding, the right security, the right everything. So having a value proposition that's about the conversation people are having in their heads, right, is one that's amazing. So if you're a UCC expert or collaboration expert, and you were talking about how it would help people grow their revenues, get more customers, engage with customers, now you flip it and you say, we can help you enable this remote workforce as the world changes to have a higher expectation from them. And you can then have that conversation about, well, what do you mean? Because a good value prop gets somebody to say, could you tell me more about that? What do you mean about that? So I think that's how I'm looking at it, more of a hopeful helping.
So that makes a lot of sense. And it also flashes me back to even more references to my conversations with my MSSP friends. The biggest sales objection from SMBs, which right now is a huge market, even bigger probably than normal because none of them were set up to work remotely beforehand, right? But these MSSPs, the number one objection from SMBs, I'm too small. Nobody's going to bother with me. I don't need that, and it's not just security. Now when we're talking about this remote work situation, oh, I don't need that bell and whistle. That's extravagant. I just need my employees to be able to stay connected.
I'm actually going to use a consumer example here, and then I'll take it over to the channel. So many, many years ago, L'Oreal hair dye was more expensive than any other hair dye because there were import taxes from France. So women didn't buy the dye. It was too expensive until L'Oreal decided to make it about the end user. And they said, L'Oreal, you're worth it. So they made you feel as an end user as if, well, wait a minute, so that cheaper dye. No, I'm not, you're right, I'm worth that more expensive dye. So now let's equate that to that small business.
Wait
so
a minute,
that small business.
So what you're telling me is that I need to get my roots done.
Well, I do too. So we're all. I've got the comb over going on. We've all got our own set of fun going on here. Somebody said to me, "Your hair's really dark." I said, "No, that's the natural color of my hair. Like,
my hair's really dark.
I usually have highlights." The Indian in me. So I think if you take it over to the channel and you say, if the first time you tell a small business that they need grown-up technology is on a sales call, then you've failed. Because you should have been dripping content into the market that was telling them that all along. And if you're doing an effective job, you should have content not about your solutions or any solutions, just about the high costs. Like, think about the Verizon data breach investigation report. Mm-hmm. It showed that small business is now the target. It's the target. Mm-hmm. So if the first time your customer hears that is when you're trying to sell them security, you made a mistake. Because you didn't take them out on a few dates before you asked them to marry you. So, you've got to get out there. You have to have content. And this is where now, every customer is on social media multiple hours a day. We all are. Get out there. It's so inexpensive. It's free to take content and put it on social media and have the tough conversations so that when you do to talk to your clients or talk to prospects, they've heard that already and they're already concerned or engaged in wanting to get that more robust, solution. Now it won't work for every SMB, but it'll work for more of them than the current approach is working for.
So how do partners do that right now during this crisis? The COVID survey that I mentioned earlier, I think the number is 28% of respondents said that the amount of time that they're spending on supporting current clients has increased to such a point they can't support new sales or onboarding activities.
And that's so scary, by the way. That's so scary because some of those clients they're supporting just by the nature of business, not even the nature of this pandemic, will go out of business, and then they won't have a funnel, right? So that is so frightening to me, because it means that, they're the next targets. So here's what I would tell you. The vendors have had to cancel many of their events, which means they have money. So many of the vendors have potentially some MDF, marketing development funds, or JMF, joint marketing funds, depending on what program you're in. And you can actually outsource, as the owner, somebody doing not only your content, but your engagement, and actually having it all done for you. So you can do about a 1 hour intake process with a firm like mine or others, and they can actually do that for you. And all you have to do is once a month approve some content, take care of the rest. And oh, by the way, the vendor will pay for that. They're happy to pay for that, because they understand the only place you can sell now is in social media or online. The other thing I would tell you, and I have this conversation all the time, same thing, vendors can fund this. I talk to MSPs all the time. They tell me they're 100-mile journey company, right? Most MSPs are not nationwide. Some of the big ones are, right? But most of them are 100-mile journeys. They may have 10 offices that all have 100-mile journeys, but they're still, typically a local business. And they haven't optimized their websites for local search. So they're competing with every, Tom, Sue, and Harry out there for the business. And again, simple, I'm going to update my website, feature the vendor, get leads, make sure I get found on Google Business, and make sure I get found on all the native search, is a very affordable thing to do. And you don't have to do it. Somebody else can just do that for you with the existing website you have. I looked at 63 now. I'm at 63. I do one a day. 63 MSPs websites that I know are kind of in the middle, the chunk of the 501, as I like to call it, and none of them are optimized for local search.
Really?
Yep.
How hard is it to do that, though? Is it something that a business owner can do on their own, or do they have to go to a vendor and say, I need your help?
So if you're techie, there's a thing called schema.org. It's schema.org. And Bing, Yahoo, and Google years ago came up with a language that helps them identify local websites, because they really are about the local journey, right? They want you to find local. If you've ever searched Google, it's near me is the most, prevalent thing. They'll actually organize the content to who's near you, because they know where your IP address is. So what happens is that language is not that hard to do. So if you're a techie, you could learn that and do that to your WordPress site, or wherever you use your site. If you're not techie, it can be outsourced. And in fact, if you've got 10 locations, you can have the same website done 10 times with just some little changes to it, and Google will give you credit in all 10 markets as having a local site. This is cheaper than any marketing campaign you could do, any sales campaign you could do, any contest you could do. And again, if you submit it as a demand generation, you might just get a vendor to pay for it. But if you don't, at least you're going to get business without the effort. And that's what I saw in that survey question, Chris, the effort of having to go look for clients versus clients finding you.
Right.
And that, to me, that's the big difference here. And we've trademarked digital normal, that JS group, because I think that's the stage we're in. We're in the digital normal stage, not the digital transformation stage. And in a digital normal world, having people do social selling, having content that's on social media, and then having a website that's optimized for local search seems like just like basic stakes for an MSP. Mm-hmm. Not expensive, not difficult, and likely to be funded by a vendor. What's not to love?
Well, Janet, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been such a fun conversation, as always.
Always.
Until next time, I'm Chris Blackman, and remember, it's 501 somewhere.